in the world has met with the European Central Bank about to decide what to do with digital euro. Ripple, XRP, get to information. My friend Christine Lagarde, what to do with everything. Chris Larsson video made first. Has anyone still thought that the fact that Ripple has been meeting governments all over the world for years is just a coincidence? Ripple is not like businesses. XRP is not like digital assets. We tried to tell you that this is for digital ones. And all the marbles. Even though it's been 10 years since the financial crisis, we may not have tools to stop the next one. And this is where I think digital assets really handy. A digital asset that works well can really fix big problems in liquidity. Give you an idea of how badly money moves around the world. Trillions and trillions of dollars in cash. The amount of capital that is stuck could be cut down by trillions of dollars if there was a digital product that worked really well like XRP. This is what we think will work the best. As a bank, a payment service, or a business, you can make those moves right away without having to have money spread over the world. We would have let Lehman Brothers fail in 2008 if we knew that it would have only caused $9 billion loss on the market. It could have been sold by the government. Without the lack of transparency, there would have been policy choices that could read white paper. Were all of the fog of war. There is no way to know where the rate of contact is. If there was a record of all the risks, we would have known and been able to take steps to avoid a crisis. One sign of a healthy liquid market is that it is resilient. That has to do with how quickly a market can return from a major systemic event. Why does Ripple seem like the key to opening the future so that we don't have another financial crisis like the one in 2008? That will be possible with blockchain technology. Talking about Australia, South America, Mexico, Canada, the UK, and Europe. It's everywhere. This is what world leaders know about Ripple. What it is, what it does, and what it can do for their countries. They want XRP badly. The next economic downturn. The question mark is meant to show that we're not trying to start a crisis. Instead, we want to do everything we can to predict, stop, and identify the conditions that would actually. If you want everyone to use a new method, you need to let people know that something bad could happen. Then you make the problem happen behind the scenes, right? Crisis, issue, answer, and blockchain. Also, I believe we should remember two things when we think about the subject. First, the global banking system has been changing all the time since the end of World War II, and the rate of change has sped up as technology has improved. The second thing is that things that new are often just old risks dressed up in new clothes, and this makes me think of Professor Carmen Reiner and Kenneth Rogoff's work on the last financial crisis. This one is different, though. This is one reason why study is so important for keeping the economy stable. Research helps us understand how innovation changes and advances the economy by using careful analysis and knowledge of the past. It also makes possible risks more visible so that policymakers can deal with them ahead of time and, hopefully, stop them before they happen. Especially important is research that helps us understand the effects of the big changes that have happened in the financial system since the global financial crisis. These changes have happened in a relatively short amount of time compared to the 8th century and the last 15 years or so. And one of the most important structural changes in the financial system over the last 20 years has been the rise of non-bank financial companies. Who do you think those non-bank banking institutions are? Well, it will soon have a bank, but whatever. I wanted to learn more about how XRP can be used to stop the next financial collapse. Well, this is the study. Governments around the world can use XRP to make the financial system more stable, make things more clear, and provide important funding to help stop more financial disasters and to keep the system stable and liquid. Nostro Vostro funds are expensive and don't work well for governments and central banks. They can use XRP instead. By using XRP as a bridge asset, trillions of dollars in idle global cash can be put to good use. Cross-border settlements can happen right away, cutting down on structural delays and making sure that capital moves quickly during times when the economy is unstable. The global financial system is stronger during this crisis because of how quickly cash is available. The government's use of XRP ledgers and blockchain technology makes it possible to keep track of all financial events in real time and in a way that can't be changed. Blockchain-based transparency makes it easier for auditors and officials to keep an eye on money flows, spot problems, and make sure rules are followed. This greatly lowers the risk that comes with shadow banking activities that aren't public and dishonest activities that have typically caused financial meltdowns. It talks about crisis measures and emergency cash flow. If XRP goes up in value and more people start using it, it could give institutions like Ripple, which has the biggest reserve, a big emergency fund for when things go wrong. This could help keep the market stable and maybe even cut down on the need for taxpayer-funded bailouts when the system is in trouble. Also, governments could keep XRP as digital backups, like gold or foreign currencies, so they could quickly step into markets when they needed to. It does talk about integrating people from different makes it possible for foreign organizations and federal and state governments to easily combine payment processes. This standardized framework gets rid of technical and practical silos that make it hard to respond to global shocks together. Tokenizing assets, currencies, bonds, and commodities on the XRP ledger allows for fast settlement and deep liquidity. This makes it easier for governments to take part in coordinated financial actions, long-term disaster prevention, and a strategic reserve. Some governments are now thinking about adding XRP to their digital asset reserves to make their response powers more flexible and strong. Adding XRP to official reserves makes its role as a buffer for market breakers more official, which supports a long-term policy shift toward making digital finance more resilient. There is a lot of really cool stuff going on here. Christine Lagarde is at this event right now talking about what the European reaction will be from now on. Hi, good morning. I'm in Copenhagen for a meeting of the Eurogroup and the ECOFIN. That doesn't mean we're not formal, but the discussions we have won't lead to formal conclusions or choices. Now, all that needs to happen is for his cross-border payments to become part of the global banking system. This will make it easier for people to trade and invest. The world market for traditional and crypto cross-border payments was getting close to 1 trillion in 2024. Crypto payments, despite their recent rise, only made up a small part of this market. Okay, we already know what will happen. Ladies and gents, we've seen this movie before. This clip is from a few years ago, but it really fits with where we are going now. I'll play for you. What do I mean when I say that CBDCs are very important? Because, there are now a lot of new birds or animals floating around with different names. It's been called safe coins and cryptocurrencies by different people. From our point of view, we should be very careful about how we understand and evaluate what they mean. When talking about stable coins, the most important question that needs to be answered is whether or not governments and central banks are okay with private cash. The sovereign is in charge of the currency, but in countries like India, the sovereign gives this job to the central bank. In light of this, are we okay with private currency? So these new technologies that are being sold as innovations have negative effects on the stability of the domestic and global economies, as well as on the domestic and global money systems. This is something that everyone needs to understand. We have written about it, RBI, and I have also talked about it. I'm not going to make a list of the possible threats, though. They are a danger in many ways, such as funding terrorism and laundering money. Other threats include currencies like emerging market currencies, which will make it harder for the central bank to keep tabs on the money supply. There are many problems that need to be solved, and these are very dangerous. We don't want something like that. In fact, I think we need to fully understand the risks of these things before we try to make them legal, no matter what you call them, stable coins, cryptocurrencies, or something else. What number of sharks are in the water do we need to know before we go in? I think that's how I would say it in plain English. So that's why CBDC is important. The world is going toward technology, and CBDCs play a big part in that because they can really make things easier. In a nutshell, Ripple's CBDC Answer is one of the 4 biggest companies in the world that are working on CBDCs right now. You have an H-bar, you have a MasterCard for R3. Some CBDC technology is used by Stellar as well, but not as much as the other 4. Ripple's technology is the one that central banks around the world trust the most right now. They have the most pilots all over the world. Ladies goes. Have a wonderful day. You can like if you found it useful. Thank you very much for your support. Next week, I'll be at home. Hello. I just made a course to help people who are new to curious about or already know a lot about